Welcome to the Fittest Dad podcast. I am your host, Caleb Bowers. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me this week on the Fittest Dad podcast. Today we are going to talk about last week actually we talked about how to train for and get ready to race or run your first marathon. So this week we're going to talk about how to actually run that race on race day, strategies for pacing, for nutrition and everything like that. And also I'm going to use it as an example is the half marathon that I just ran over last week that I actually ended up placing first in my age division. So I'm wearing my first place medal here. And also set a new PB, PR, personal best, personal record, what you want to call it. So I'm going to use that as an example to try to give you an idea of what I do and what helps fuel me, what helps prepare me, what strategy I use in order to run a personal best, a record, to do my very best on race day. But before we get into that, since we are back in studio for this one, we're going to do a devotional before we get into the meat of the conversation. So today we're going to read out of Matthew chapter 25, and this is a parable where Jesus is talking about the parable of the talents to the disciples. Now, talents back in Bible times is a form of currency, but we're also going to relate it to actual talents and giftings that God has given you and how to use those properly. So it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who has called his own servants and delivered goods to them. He gave one 5 talents, another 2, and another 1, each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received 5 talents went and traded them and made another 5 talents. Likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who received 1 went, dug it in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of the servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought the other 5 talents, saying, Lord, you delivered me 5 talents, and look, I have gained 5 more. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things, so I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He who also received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered me 2 talents, and look, I have gained 2 more besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done. Say the same thing. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you the ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Then he who had received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. And look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have at least received back my money with own interest. Or received back with my own with interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. From him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Cast the unprofitable servant into the utter darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So when I read that, I was thinking about it the other day when I was on a run, there's a lot of people I know that have more talents, abilities, opportunities, privileges, if you want to put it that way, than I have. And there's people I know that I have more than they do. So, but when I think about that parable and what it's talking about, it's not pointing out the fact that, it's unfair that some start with more than others, is they all started with an amount. The Lord, in this case, who is representation of the Lord, uppercase L, God, has given each of them talents according to their own ability. So he already had an idea and knew who would be able to handle more and who would be able to handle less. Because if you notice, the first 2, the one with 5 and with 2, they both doubled it And when the Lord came back and they said, hey, look, I doubled it, he said to both, you know, you have been faithful with a little, so I will make you faithful with a lot. You know, I will make you ruler over a lot. But the thing is, though, is to the guy who had 2, the guy who had received 5 did not, you know, wasn't faithful over little. But because of their ability, their maturity, their God's knowledge of who they are and how they can handle things, he wasn't going to give them more than they could originally handle. He would have loved to give them all 5 talents, but he knew he wasn't going to set them up for failure. So he placed each according to their own ability. Just as we each have been given talents and abilities and opportunities according to our own ability. And it's not that we need to compare them to what everybody else has, but that we need to use what we have in order to gain and fulfill the purpose that God has for us. So the guy who received 2 did just as much as the guy who received 5, even though he only got 4 in the end, and the guy who had 5 had 10. So God was equally as pleased because they had put in the same amount of work and received the same results. But the guy who had 1 said, oh, I know you to be a hard man, a harsh man, and that you take what's not yours and all this sort of thing, which I think is so ironic that he says this, you know, you gather seed that you did not sow or stuff like that, and harvest where you did not scatter seed, which is ironic considering he's the one who gave the guy the money. Which I'm like, okay, no, he gave it to you. He gave it to you to sow and to grow and to harvest. So what are you talking about? He gave it to you. It's his. What do you mean he didn't? You know, he's a harsh man who takes what's not his. It's all his. He gave it to you. So which is just another thing is that God gave you these talents. God gave you this ability. God gave you these opportunities. And it's your responsibility to do all that you can with them. Not to focus on what everybody else has or doesn't have, what everybody else's privileges and opportunities are that you don't have, that you feel entitled to. And that's another problem. Don't feel entitled to anything. You're entitled to nothing. None of those servants were entitled to anything they have because it all belonged to the master, to the Lord. And the Lord gave them as their ability. Not that they earned it or they deserved it or it was theirs. It wasn't. It was his, and he gave it to them to work with and to use while he was gone. And he's coming back. You know, at the end of the Bible, we know that Jesus is coming back. So it's up to us to use our talents, our opportunities, our abilities, our giftings to further the kingdom of God. To not just sit here idly and be like, well, I didn't want to mess anything up. And, you know, God's so mean to me and he just wants to take all my stuff. And stop being whiny. Stop whining. Stop complaining. Stop being a little baby. That's all. I mean, it sounds harsh, but really, I mean, he said it right. It's harsh. God, the parable at the end, it's harsh to the man who wasted his talents. It's harsh. He said, you will be cast into utter darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is hell. It said, and you can have hell here on earth too. It said, if you sit there idly with the giftings and callings and the talents and the abilities God has that God has given you, said it will be like hell on earth, and then you will have to pay that as well in eternity. So I just want to encourage you today with anything that God has given you. Don't allow comparison to creep in and keep you from, he said, even if you would have just put it in the bank, done the least amount where at least I could have collected some interest. He said, do something. You know, maybe you don't get the double. You know, maybe you don't flip it from 2 to 4 or from 5 to 10. But he said anything would have been better than wasting it. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your abilities. Don't waste your talents. Let's get to work. So God has a plan and a purpose for you. And better yet, if you go on to read the rest of the Bible, you know, he's like, oh, well, I got to do all this stuff so God doesn't get mad at me. No. It's the Holy Spirit empowers you to be able to do those things. Those other 2 stood on the faith of the power that they were given by their Lord. It said the other one was just stuck in fear and entitlement and laziness. Don't be lazy. Walk in power. Power requires work. It's going to require output. But you're capable of doing it because God has created you to do it. So I just want to encourage you with that today. So let's pray and let's get into talking about race day. Dear Lord, I thank you for today, and I thank you for the opportunity that we have to hear your word today and to apply it to our lives, that we would not waste any more time, any abilities, or any giftings that you have given us, that we would focus our energy on furthering the kingdom of God. Lord, I thank you that you have made us fearfully and wonderfully, the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, more than conquerors through Jesus Christ. Lord, I ask that you forgive us of all of our sins as we forgive anybody who has sinned against us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys, so let's dive into race day. So like I said, last weekend I ran a half marathon for funsies because my wife wanted to, and actually originally we were going to run a half marathon a couple months ago, and it rained, so it got rescheduled to today, yesterday. But yesterday was also the first day of my son's new soccer season. He's 3, and we decided to sign him up for soccer, and I made the dumb decision of saying, yeah, I can volunteer to coach. And honestly, like, leading up to the season, it was a bunch of hullabaloo and stuff where I'm like, guys, I'm coaching 3-year-olds. Why am I having 6 meetings on how to coach 3-year-olds? Which it was mostly for, because it was for all coaches, and it goes all the way up to like middle school. So it was more for them. But you know, and I couldn't make a lot of the meetings because I have a job, and my job is far away. And so they would be like, oh, we're gonna have a meeting at 5:30. It's like, I get up at 5. And it takes me an hour and 15 minutes minimum to get home. So I will not be there. But they're like, oh, no worries. Which I found out why they said no worries, because it wasn't like they could teach me anything to do with these kids, because it went just as well as you could expect a practice and game for 3-year-olds to go. Though it was highly entertaining. It was very entertaining. And I did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited for the rest of the season. You know, it's a good group of kids. They make me laugh. It'll be a good time. But so in that case, there was actually a half marathon really close to us. It was just at this mall that we have gone to forever. That's about 20 minutes away from our house. And we were there. So we had some friends that live there. They have an apartment complex there on the outskirts of it's really a shopping center. It's Firewall Town Center, if there's anybody in the Dallas area that may know what that is. But it's an outdoor, it's a mall, but it's just really a big shopping center. It's all outdoors. And there's apartments on the outskirts of the shopping center, but they lived in them. We were hanging out with them like a week before that. We saw a sign for the first annual Firewall Half Marathon. And I was like, hey, and it's, on a Sunday, I was like, hey, you know what? So we can do that race, and it starts at 6:45 a.m. So we'd still be able to finish the race. My parents live right by our church. We could go to my parents' house, shower and then change, and then still make it to church on time, and not miss church. Because I don't. Number one, I said we work at our church, so we don't want to miss work. But number two, I don't like missing church. Period. So we can go, we can race, and still not miss church. I try to miss church as least amount as possible. So it worked out perfectly. So we signed up for it and did it. And it ended up being a looped course. So it was honestly, the race was not really well put together. It was supposed to be like a 3.2 mile course loop that you did 4 times. But it was very poorly marked. It ended up being short. So, and I ended up accidentally doing 5 laps instead of 4. So I got like 13.9 miles, but my wife, who actually did 4, got like 12.4 or something like that. It ended up being almost a mile short. And so it technically, so I PR'd my half marathon race time, even though technically it wasn't a half marathon distance. But they gave me a first place medal, and I'm going with it. You can't take it from me. It's right here on my neck, sitting on my chest. So come at me, bro. So, but it was great. It was a lot of fun. And since it was a looped course, I said, hey, since I'll be able to still, see you and help, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm actually going to somewhat race it because, since it's a loop course, I could still see you and stuff like that. Because I don't want to just leave her hanging. And and so it looped it, did great. Wasn't really sure because it was, like I said, it was really very poorly run. So I had no idea what to expect. I miscounted my loops and ended up running an extra. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to make it. So the last loop I ran with her. But it turns out I'd already finished. It was a whole big thing. But it was a lot of fun and enjoyed it. And it was really cool winning something. And I was uber surprised. Like I said, I had, not expected it. And so they had actually, they had some bathroom issues in terms of it started in front of a movie theater. Excuse me. And the movie theater was apparently supposed to be open for us to use the bathrooms, but they didn't. So they had mall security. There's one public bathroom in the mall, and it's in the very center of the mall. We were on the outskirts. The race was all on the outskirts. And so they're like, hey, we're going to push it back like 10 minutes so y'all can go. And it took them forever to unlock the bathroom, and they never got it unlocked, at least. And it was like 6 minutes. I was like, you know what? Just go back. Well, they ended up not pushing the race back, and they started it. So I started like 5-6 minutes after everybody else had started. So I couldn't really gauge based off of who I had passed and all this sort of thing, because it was so it was so bad because there was so many because it was a loop course and I had started so late, so I just didn't know. And so they ended up after I finished what I thought. And where I got miscounted was I thought I had finished a loop, and then as I was finishing the next loop, I asked the guy that was at the turnaround. I said, "Hey, did they get the bathrooms open?" He said, "Yeah, they did." I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna run off course and get it, and then I'll come back and start right here." He said, "Okay, cool." And so I, in my head, thought I had only done one loop, but I had just finished two before I ran off to the bathroom. And so went to the bathroom, had to run back. That added like half a mile to go to the bathroom and back and stuff like that, and took like 6 minutes. And so then I ran a 6:20 or 6:40 something like mile to try to make up the time. It was a mess. I don't even know. But it was a lot of fun, and it ended up working out somehow. I'm not even sure. It was all sorts of a mess. And then the timing was weird. So I finished. And all my times, like their chip time was messed up and everything like that. Everybody's time was messed up because they're like, oh, it says like here it says you finished 1:53, but here it says 1:36. I was like, well, I know I didn't do 1:36. I know that's for a fact, but it was all sorts of mess. But they gave me this. I took it. It's mine. You can't take it back. But besides that, and I'm going to use kind of my experience with some good race days and bad race days to help you plan and strategize for your race day. So you've put in the training, 18 to 24 weeks, and you're ready. Race day is coming up, or let's say it's race week. It's Monday, and your race is on either Saturday or Sunday. And let's talk about, so before that race week, I would only do like 2 runs, maybe 2 to 3 miles. So like if your race is on Sunday, I would do a run on Monday and a run on Wednesday, just 2 to 3 miles each, just to keep your legs loose, keep everything flowing and nice and easy, super nice and easy. That'll help promote recovery, but it'll still keep those muscles loose, keep that blood flowing, keep everything working good. But you want to allow your body to rest, so that way everything is fully recovered and ready to put it all out there on the line on race day. And you want to make sure you're eating a lot. So this is actually one of my hardest aspects of when I go into a race, is eating enough food prior to the race, because you want to eat good food. Don't eat a bunch of crap. So eating a bunch of crap you think would be beneficial in terms of, number one, getting enough calories and enough carbohydrates so you can get your glycogen stores up in your muscles, but it'll make you feel like crap and you want to feel good. So you're going to have to eat a lot of, before this race, because I didn't treat it like a race because it was a distance where I knew I wasn't going to have to necessarily it wasn't going to be something that really pushed my limits because I had done it a bunch before, but I was going to try to race it. So I wanted to be prepared. So I was going to try to push my own, it's my time limits a little bit. Even though my distance limits were not pushed. And so the night before I made a big thing of pasta, some ravioli with with a garlic, red sauce, roasted garlic red sauce. And it was a big, massive bowl of pasta and sauce, and I ate that the night before. But if you're doing like a marathon, especially if your first one, I would say like 3 days before. I would, if your calorie limit is like you're trying to get, I don't know, 2,400 calories a day, and you want 200 to 300 grams of carbs, I would make that like 26 to 2,800 calories with like 400 to 450 grams of carbs, just up it a little bit. So that way you're going to get a little extra in there. Because, I know a lot of like people think, oh, I'm going to just carbo load the dinner before, which, is kind of, depending on where your race is. Like most of my races, I have to do some traveling, just because there's only one race that's marathon wise that's close to me. And even then, it's in Dallas, which is like 40 minutes from my house, so it's not even close. So there's usually I'm having to travel, stay in a hotel, stuff like that, and I don't like. And I may feel a little nervous or a little anxious, and I'm just not really feeling like eating a big meal the night, the last dinner before the race. So you want to make sure you're trying to, instead of doing one massive meal where you make yourself sick, is to do 6 meals over the course of 2 or 3 days before, and really get that that extra calories and extra carbohydrates. Get your body ready and fueled. Get your fuel tank stocked up before doing a little bit more at each meal versus just one. Stuff your face at one meal, because it can make it more difficult. And you can have a poor race like I did when I got food poisoning and got a DNF on my sub 4-hour attempt. So I would highly advise to be very strategic and very intentional about your eating leading up to a race. Don't eat anything weird. Don't try the new wings at Whataburger because you're driving to Houston the day before to get ready for your race, and then get food poisoning or just your stomach not like them, and yet throw up and have some terrible poopy times in the middle of the race the next day. So to make sure you eat stuff that's not going to hurt your stomach, that you're going to enjoy, because you want to enjoy it. And that's going to help you feel good, and it's going to help you perform good. And then depending on where your race is, if you have to travel, I said, be intentional, plan your meals. So like when I did my my ultra marathon, and we went to Utah and we drove there, I packed so much of my own food and meals, because I was like, if we went somewhere and they didn't have something that like I felt comfortable with eating, microwave a pre-prepped meal, ate a bunch of food that I knew I was comfortable with, because I was not going to have that experience again. But you just got to be intentional. You got to plan and strategize that before you leave. Don't do it. You're like, oh yeah, I know, so I'll do this and this, because you want to be able to, you want to know. You don't want to hope or have to lean on stuff that you're just like, okay, this should be there. They should have this there. And then you find out they don't. So just make sure that you plan that ahead. And then race day happens. Usually most of the time races start early in the morning, anywhere from 6 to 7 a.m. Usually the marathon starts first, because like I said, a lot of times marathons, they'll have a half marathon or sometimes a 10K. Usually if they have a 5 or a 10K, they may do that the day before the marathon or the half marathon. But I know with the Dallas one, they do an ultra, a full, and a half, which their ultra is a 50K, which is 32 miles, something like that, 31 miles. And they just start the ultra with the full, and then the half is sprinkled in at the back of the pack. And so they'll have, usually most marathons tend to be a little bit bigger, so they'll have corrals that's different groups. So like you might be in corral, and they'll split them up by, like when you sign up, they'll have like an estimated, what's your estimated finish time, and they'll split you up. Like on my sub 4 hour attempt, I guess I was like really feeling confident and somehow ended up in the A group right behind the elites. So like legit was like me and then the elites, which are the professional racers in front of me. And I was like, I don't think I should be here because I was looking at them and I was looking at me and I was like, all right, this will be interesting. But, and then I pooped myself. So there's that. But they'll split you up in corrals. Get in your corral. I like to get in there early. Get my mindset. I might listen to some music or listen to something. Usually before a race, I'm listening to like very calming stuff because I get really hyped up really easily, whether it be from just being anxious or excited or all sorts. So I like to try to, maybe listen to some soft worship music, listen to a book, listen to something that helps kind of calm me down, center me, go over my plan, race strategy in my head. And then, gun starts and you start going. So during the race, I said, especially for your first one, most of the time, most marathons are pretty well put together. There will be aid stations, usually every 1.5 to 2 miles. I suggest you stop at every single one of them and make sure you drink. Usually they have water and some type of electrolyte drink. Most of the time, like everyone I've done has been Gatorade, is I will drink 1 cup of water, 1 cup of Gatorade, pretty much at every aid station. Now, I need a lot of hydration because I sweat a lot. And so I lose a lot of electrolytes as I'm running. And so I would drink water and Gatorade. And if not water, like if I had to choose between one, I would drink Gatorade pretty much at every aid station. And I even carry a little handheld. I should have brought it. It's in my truck, but it's a little Nathan handheld water bottle. It's got a strap and it also holds my phone. But and I would even take that with me. But I would most likely, I usually was saving that more towards the end of the race, when I'm tired and I don't want to slow down to get sometimes because there comes a point where like if I slow down, I will not be able to stop to go again. And so I like to say that for if I'm not able to, if I miss it, or if like I'm stuck between aid stations and I really need some hydration and stuff like that, and push through going that way. Now, fueling wise, sometimes some races will have gels and or snacks and stuff like that at the aid stations too for marathons. If you're a solid food person, I highly suggest doing bananas, high calorie count. They've also got potassium, which good electrolyte, good for the muscles, and they got a high carbohydrate and sugar content, and it's a natural sugar, so your body will be able to process it well, and it's mushy, so you don't really have to chew it. You can just kind of mush it in your mouth. So it's really easy to eat. They've got lots of gels. If I use gels, I use the BPN, Bare Performance Nutrition Go Gels, have been my favorite so far. I want to try the Morton gels, M-A-U Morton, M-A-U-R-T-E-N, M-A-U-R-T-E-N, I think is how it's spelled. But they've got some good stuff. There's the spring gels, spring energy gels that have had some controversy because somebody tested them and the nutrition, like calories and carbohydrates in that are on the label didn't match what was in the pack, but they're like a vegan all natural type. Excuse me, sorry, it's early in the morning, I'm tired. Vegan all natural type gel, and so it can be hit or miss, but they taste good. And I've never used them in a race, but people, like, I know a lot of people that use them and say they don't have any stomach issues. There's a lot of them, but you gotta have to test them out. I know there's the goo, there's Cliff bar stuff. Cliff has a bunch of stuff. Is just get some, test them out, see what works for you. Everybody's different. They might all none of them may hurt your stomach, but you like one more than you like the other. It just depends. Now, if you want to go at least, and they can be pretty expensive, but one thing that I've started using actually that I use for my half marathon, that I'm going to go over what I ate and how I prepared in just a minute, but these Go-Go Squeeze. Now, these are literally just applesauce packets. They're for kids, but they, especially in the ultra marathon community, they're real big. But they came out, Go-Go Squeeze, understood the assignment and realized that, hey, we have a whole demographic of people that use these to run ultra marathons or, at all. So they came out with the Go-Go Squeeze Active, which is fruit blend with electrolytes. And it's literally just, so apples, strawberry puree, pineapple puree, orange puree, black currant puree, electrolyte and antioxidant blend, and then some vitamins, and then lemon juice concentrate. So all natural, no sugar added, tastes good. It's got 60 calories, 50 grams of sodium, and 14 grams of carbohydrate. So it's not as, nutritionally dense as a gel, but that's because gels are super concentrated. But it's good. It's easy to take down. I would take 2 of these at a time. Like when I would take a gel instead of 1 gel, I'd do 2 of those. Now they're a little bit bigger and then they're heavier. And like I said, you can, depending on who you are, like I said, I burn a lot of energy very quickly. So I would take 2 at a time instead of 1 because I just need the extra. It's why I drink so much water too. But that's just, personal preference. And during my half marathon, I actually didn't. I only took 1 at a time. But that's because it was, like I said, it was a distance I was very comfortable with, and I wasn't needing to fuel for 12 hours like when I did my ultra marathon. And so really like those. But every 30 to 45 minutes, now like I said, I'd like to take mine at the 35-minute mark because I like to feel the energy from the digestion come in at around 45 minutes. So I keep that, and I keep that all the way through the race. And now I like, depending on, there's always like people that will have like pickle juice shots or donuts or apples or not apples, bananas and stuff like, because we run through a lot of neighborhoods in the races, and like they'll set up a big table, just like the neighbors and stuff like that, and they're cheering people on. If you feel comfortable with it, I would stop almost every time and get whatever they had because number one, it's hard to turn down free food. Love free food. But I have never been able to overfuel myself race. I have almost every time had an issue with underfueling. It's been incredibly difficult. I've never been able to reach the point of like, oh no, I've overfueled. I'm feeling sluggish. I've had, oh no, I'm running out of energy. I'm running on E because I didn't get enough fuel in me. So, and like I said, that's personal preference. But if it's your first marathon, like I said, you're not going to be, running at a 6, 7, 5-minute pace, going for world records. You're going to be, taking it a little bit slower. You're going to be doing your, I would suggest, even with your first one, depending on how comfortable you are, doing a run walk method. Now, maybe you're like, okay, I know for the first half, I feel comfortable running, and it may be slow, and you want to pick a pace that you're ready to carry out through the whole thing. So like I might be able to run 1 mile at 8 minutes, but I want to be able to run 13 miles at 10 minutes or 11 minutes, whatever it may be, 12 minutes, 13 minutes, 14 minutes, whatever it may be. Pick the pace that you can hold, when you're tired, not when you're feeling good at the beginning. And keep yourself to that pace because you're going to want to go out fast. Crowd's cheering, you're excited, everybody, high energy, all this sorts of stuff. You're going to naturally just go faster. Slow yourself down, keep yourself at your pace. You want to make sure you can start strong, stay strong, and finish strong. But institute and apply that run walk method, however you ended up strategizing it. If you're going to run 20 minutes, walk 5 minutes, run, whatever it may be, whatever your strategy is, make sure you stick with it through the whole race. Because you'll feel like at the beginning, like, oh, I could run this whole thing and do something crazy, and then you find out by mile 18 you were very, very wrong, and now you're about to die, but you still have 8 miles to go. So slow down, conserve, It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Literally. It's literally a marathon, not a sprint. So stick to the plan, stick to the strategy, stick to the pacing. All right. So I want to talk a little bit and share what my race day, when I ran this half marathon, what my race day nutrition looked like. So I got up, like I said, the race started at 6:45 a.m. It was going to take us about 20 minutes to drive there. So we had to pick up our what are they called? Our numbers, our stuff. I can't remember what they're called. Our bibs. We had to pick up our bibs and stuff before because we weren't able to pick it up the day before. So we're going to get there early. So we got there probably about 6:10, 6:15. So we left our house at about 5:45, 5:50. So I woke up at about 4:15. So that way I got up and I immediately, I had a shaker bottle full of this right here. These are Ghost Switchback electrolytes. It said it's, I use a lot of different electrolytes. This is currently my favorite. I've used the BPN electrolytes, which they have good ones. The Element, LNMT, they're all right. I've used them before. I don't mind them, but this is my favorite. In one serving, it's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 400 milligrams of potassium, and 500 milligrams of coconut water powder. And coconut water and me work very well together, so that's why I like this one so much. It helps. I've always felt very hydrated. It's why I like Body Armor is my favorite, like over-the-counter pickup at a gas station rehydration mix or drink. So I like to use the Ghost Switchback electrolytes. This is the lemon limeade flavor, and they're gonna come out with some other good ones soon. So I highly suggest checking them out. And then I ate I guess technically it's peanut butter and honey fold over. So I took 2 slices of bread, peanut butter, honey fold, and I ate those. And then I went and took a shower, got dressed and everything like that. Drank another bottle of water, just regular water, and a Celsius, just because I always drink a Celsius. Not because I really needed it, because I just drink a Celsius because I like it. It's just more of like a comfort thing at this point. But got dressed, got my wife up, everything like that, loaded up in the car. Before we loaded up in the car, I got another shaker bottle full of my Feast Fuel pre-workout, which if you haven't checked them out yet, I posted on my Instagram about them, but you need to check them out, the Feast Fuel pre-workout. And this has just got a lot of good stuff: hydration, energy, and performance, natural caffeine to get you going, electrolytes to keep you going, and amino acids to help you recover so you can do it all over again. So it's got a very low caffeine amount. It's not a heavy pre-workout, because I know a lot of pre-workouts like make you feel kind of like itchy and stuff like that. Sorry, got a doggy joining us. So that one doesn't make you feel jittery, but it helps, especially being a race day so early in the morning. Wanted to make sure that I was, feeling up to the task, help wake myself up. And I added half a scoop of the electrolytes to that, shook it up. And then when we got there, like I said, around 6:15, race time was in about 30, 40 minutes. I drank that. We got our bibs. I ate one of the Go Squeeze Actives, just to give myself a little bit of extra, carbs and I also mixed in that drink. Almost forgot. It said this is a First Form Ultra Formance Peri-Workout Endurance Formula and Multi-Source Carbohydrates. So this has more electrolytes, and it's a carbohydrate drink mix. And it's lemon lime flavored, so I mixed that. I was wrong. Not these, I did that. I did that with the cherry limeade pre-workout, so I got a good amount of carbs, just a little bit more, not as heavy as electrolytes as this, obviously, but in that little bit of pick-me-up, give me that energy, so I felt ready to go, felt that the fuel was topped off. And then that go squeeze, and then the race started, and I had a little handheld. No, I didn't carry water, because since it was a loop course and it was short, and I didn't carry my water with me. And so I drink nothing but water. I had 2 of these squeezes. One after the first 2 laps, and then the third lap, and then finished strong. And then we got some donuts because I want donuts, and it was a Sunday, and we get donuts. But I said, we finished strong. It was a lot of fun. So after you finish your race, it's gonna, make sure you don't stop immediately. Keep walking. I know you hear the dogs barking in the background. My bad. Keep walking. Keep going. Keep moving. So that way, the lactic acid and everything, your muscles don't just freeze up on you. And then go eat a lot of food. Like I eat like a whole pizza after a marathon. But pick something that's got a lot of everything, a lot of protein, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat, a lot of calories. Ingest those in because you're going to burn a lot during your 4 or 5 hours while you're out there. Finish strong, and next thing you know, you're a marathon runner. You finished it. You've done it. You're going to be very emotional. I cried the first one as I'm going towards the finish line, and I realized, this is it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish. I was just like, I said, don't cry. And I cried. But so finish strong. You got it. You can do it. Make sure you check out Feast Fuel. They got a lot of good stuff on there. And then I can show you. And then afterwards, you want to make sure that you're fueling for recovery because you want to be able to start running again in the next couple of days. Make sure you get your Feast Fuel protein. 100% grass-fed whey protein. 20 grams of protein per serving, 3 grams of carbs, 5 grams of BCAAs. Super clean protein, incredible. And my favorite part is you can read through the ingredients, and I know exactly what every one of them are, and I can pronounce them. So you're getting the highest quality stuff. Make sure you rest, recover, give yourself a break before you start running again, before you start figuring out what your next obstacle you're going to overcome is. But thank you guys for joining us this week on the Fittish Dad podcast.